Hi friends, hope everybody is doing great. I thought that I gave a perfect delivery of a certain message, and it turns out that God didn't agree with me, and when I went back to look at the recording, nothing was there. So here I go and I'm starting again. So I guess I'll just keep it shorter because less time now. Shabbat's going to start pretty soon, at least in Florida. Maybe it started in New York. I'm in Florida right now, so we have a little bit more time. This week's parasha, and usually I like to give an introduction, how we think things are so bad or whatever it is, a little introduction before I jump into the parasha. But true, we think things are so bad. I was just on the phone with my mom. She suffered 6 years ago from a debilitating stroke. Now she's a little bit older and cognitive issues are setting in. And it's difficult. You know, sometimes she has problems remembering where she is. Certain scenarios, I have to get on the phone and really pour my heart out. And, you know, sometimes I wish actually I can record my sessions with my mom because at the end of them, she's a new person. And I'm like, wow, I could do that to like somebody who's starting dementia. Imagine what I could do to the audience if I can convince them there really is a deeper and better reality than the ones that we think that we are going through. But it really is very interesting. And I will use my mother as an example. And though she was a proud person who would never show her weaknesses, I only look at this story now as a strength. My mother loved her home, a homebody. She decorated it with all her heart and soul. She hated to go on vacation. She didn't really need to leave the house all that much. She loved her home. That was her palace for her, for my father, for my family. You had to take off your shoes when you went in the house. I mean, really, she loved her house. Now, due to her situation, there are moments where my mother doesn't know that she's home. And she will say to me, I want to get out of this hotel. I want to go somewhere else. I want to go back home. I don't like it here. It's terrible. It's not nice. It's not clean. It's depressing. A whole list of accusations against an environment that she actually manufactured with her own hands. And the fact is, it is a clean home. It's a beautiful home. It's the complete opposite of depressing in every way. Flowers, warmth, light. Really, it's like a Gan Eden, like a paradise, my childhood home. But it all depends where you are at in life. And that will define what you see. For my mother, the reality she created, well, it's offensive to her now. There are moments where she calls me, call the police. Where I am is terrible. And I have home surveillance cameras, so I know I have the nicest girls. God sent me angels to take care of my mother. Everything about that environment in terms of our understanding in life, the way we measure things, is perfect. But my mother's mind, at moments, is not in that zone. But we all suffer from the same thing in life. There are moments in life where we do not understand the reality because we are incapacitated. Our souls are not grand enough, they're not tuned in enough, they're not wise enough to know that where we are actually is the palace of Hashem. God's palace. We are here in God's home. But things bother us. We don't understand them. They upset us. They grate against our well-being, all from our own level of ignorance. We are entrenched in a darkness that we cannot see or find the light. In this week's parasha, we read again about Joseph, which is the longest story in the Torah. Joseph's story, there are many patriarchs, great people, Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov. Their stories have a duration, but in terms of text time in the Torah, they're rather short. The story of Joseph is long. His brothers hated him. They sold him. Egypt, a dungeon, a wife who tried to hit on him. It's a long story. And it seems dark. It goes from very nice, he was the favorite son, and then it's downhill from there. Dark, dark, darker. Within one sentence from a very long story of Joseph, his destiny turns around. He had an advantage over most of us. He didn't look at his circumstances with a negative eye. It says the jail that he was in, which I've mentioned last week, it was called a Bet Sohar, the only time the Torah uses that term, which means a house of illumination, a dungeon, a pit, darkness, boot camp, whatever it is in your life that's dark. It's called in the Torah a house of light. Why is it called a house of light? Because Joseph made it light. His attitude made it light. Doesn't matter where he was, whether it was in the perfectly designed home with all the perfect flower arrangements and the dimmers to set the lighting. All that was not necessary because the light of Joseph came from within. And so many of us are caught in dark circumstances. Our lives are negative, they're terrible, they're bad, based on our measurements of what good should be. But then in a single instant, Joseph is liberated. And things that are bad can turn for the good, the same way many of us have had moments in our life, well, our life was perfect, and one phone call, one instant, 1 second, it all went wrong, one accident, one anything, everything turned on its head. But it doesn't only work in that direction. We learn in this parsha that it actually works so powerfully in the other direction. Joseph, who was at the bottom of his life, the pit of existence, rose to be the second in command of Egypt. Pharaoh summoned him from the dungeon to interpret his dreams, and Joseph went from being a prisoner to being the second in command of Egypt. One of the most powerful men in the world, the second most powerful man in the world, because all the world came to bow before Egypt to get food during that time of famine. We have to understand that there's so many things that we don't understand. Our lives can be dark and they can be painful, and there's really so much stress and confusion. But we don't understand the bigger plan of God. Joseph had an assignment, and that plan of God brought the Jews to Egypt and saved humanity. And as was destined, the Jews were to be strangers in a foreign land and to be slaves, and God would redeem us and give us the Torah. And there's so many elements that are so huge to this story that the human mind can't even fathom it. We can't comprehend it. We do not know God's plan. But we do know one thing, that He loves us. Just like any parent will love a child. The parent will slap a kid in the face. Do you think because, in normal circumstances, unless you have a mental parent, abusive, another story, whatever, put that aside. Normal people, normal families, you hit your kid, you restrain them, you scream at them, whatever it is. Do you do that because you hate your child because he was running with scissors? You hate your child because he was put his hand on the stove? Hashem slaps us with love. Stop. Look where you're going. Analyze your circumstances. What's wrong with you? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? And He screams at us, and He screams louder. But we don't hear because we're egomaniacs. We don't hear. And then all of a sudden, the darkness descends upon us, and we're lost, and we don't know where to turn, and we're frightened, we're terrified, because how many of us fear the dark? Statistics show most of us do. But if you understand inside, and it's easy to say, I know, and I fight it myself every day, but at least I have the tools to fight with. If you understand that Hashem is with you, that He is the light, He is the guiding light, He is the only light, then everything is put into perspective, even the hardships. This is from Hashem. He wants something from me. He's talking to me. Can you hear Him? Did you hear Him soon enough? Are you pressing yourself like someone would press an olive? Jews are compared to olives because when you press an olive, it turns to oil. And what does oil do? It produces light. So sometimes we have to understand that pressure that we're going through is to illuminate our souls, to illuminate our spirits. They are the wedding stones for our potential, to sharpen ourselves, to better ourselves. Yosef's destiny changed in an instant. So we have no right to be living in despair, in hate, in anger, or whatever other dark emotions that are burdening us and stopping us from serving Hashem properly at any time. The rabbis teach, the sages teach that where there is depression, there can be no blessing. And the devil wants that in you. He wants you to cling to the darkness, and he'll add more darkness for you. You're so upset. Have a drink. Have a smoke. Do the wrong thing. Curse at God. Pull for more darkness, because the darkness will comfort you. And what happens when you take those blankets that comfort you and you hide your head under the covers? You are only making more darkness. Miketz is the name of the parsha. It's an abrupt end to darkness. At any second, like when the Jews were redeemed from Egypt. Why do we eat matzah? We were redeemed from the darkness in an instant. We had no time to prepare the yeast, the dough, to rise. In an instant, our destiny changed. You're in darkness, you're in despair, your destiny can change in a second. Do not succumb to it. Do not contemplate suicide. Do not curse God. Do not go down deep and wallow in the darkness as though it is a comfort zone. It is not. It is your enemy. See the light. Be the light. Emulate Yosef. And God bless you all, that we should all go through life with strength and finding the inner light inside of us, connecting with the light above us, the light of Hashem, like a candle. A candle, no matter which way you turn it, the flame is going up. Let our souls and our spirit and our actions always rise up to meet their source, to connect with the source, so that we may be emboldened and live and fight to see another day in the service of Hashem. Chag Sameach and Shabbat Shalom.